Section 1. The desert was quiet before the men began to stir. You lie beneath a simple woven mat, a few feet from a neighbor who grumbles in his sleep. The early morning chill clings to your skin like a thin film, soon to be burned off by the Egyptian sun. You can hear the distant calls of others already rising soft voices, a yawn here and there, and the sound of clay water jars being moved. You pull yourself up slowly. Your joints ache. Not with pain exactly, just with memory. The same slow grind, the same routine. But this is your role in the world. And in truth, you're lucky. You're not a slave. You're not a criminal. You're a worker, and that matters. You've been brought here, fed, housed, and entrusted with something almost divine, building a monument for a god-king. Outside your hut, the landscape is pale and unyielding. Limestone dust coats everything, your skin, your hair, the very air. It settles into your nostrils and lingers in your throat. Far off, you can already make out the silhouette of the rising pyramid. Its steps cut into the blue, like a staircase for the gods. The stonemasons are first. You're among them. A specialized team, trained not just brutes with hammers, but men who understand grain, pressure, and patience. The block in front of you was cut weeks ago, brought from the quarry on wooden sleds dragged by oxen and men. It waits just like you to be shaped. You lift your copper chisel and the dolerite poundstone. The first tap is gentle, just a testing knock. You know better than to rush. The rhythm comes naturally. Tap, adjust, tap, shift angle. A sliver breaks loose. You brush it away. Already the sun is climbing. The noise builds around you. Dozens of men hammering, scraping, shifting stone, but no one shouts. There's no yelling over the den. Just the murmuring of foremen and the occasional bark of a transport supervisor calling for space as another sled grinds past. Each team is part of a chain. Quarry workers extract the stone. Carvers like you shape it. Haulers drag it. Setters position it. Every man has a role, and every role feeds into the next. You wipe sweat from your brow before it slips into your eyes. It's barely mid-morning, and your tunic is already damp. You pause just long enough to drink from your skin of water. One swallow only. There's no luxury in gulping. Nearby, another team is shaping a foundation block. They sing under their breath something about the Nile, slow and repetitive. Songs help with the work. Keep the tempo. Distract the mind. Once in a while, the wind shifts and brings the scent of baking barley bread from the cooked tents. You're not hungry yet, but the smell reminds you. Breakfast comes soon. Your mind wanders as your hands continue an automatic movement now, honed by weeks of the same block, same edge, same corners. You remember your village, the riverbank, fishing with your brother, your mother lighting the oil lamp. Then the wind shifts again. A low dust devil spins near the staging area, kicking up little trails like a serpent through sand. A few men stop to watch it. One makes a sign with his hand to ward off misfortune. The day wears on like a stretch of old rope, worn but reliable. By midday, your tools feel heavier. Your body moves slower. But there's still the quiet dignity of the task. This block will be placed in the pyramid wall. It will never be seen again, not in full, but it will hold weight. It will matter. In thousands of years, maybe someone will see the stones and wonder who shaped them. It was you, not by name, not in stories, but by touch, by chisel, by effort. Your signature is in the corner you beveled, the edge you smoothed. That's enough. Lunch is simple. Bread, onions, a handful of dried dates, and a thick, yeasty beer ladled into a clay cup. You eat in the shade of the supply tent. The overseer passes by, nods without speaking. That's approval. You're on track. The afternoon slips by with the sound of sledges, sweat, and the dull thud of tools. Shadows lengthen. Your arms burn, but your mind drifts. The body acts. The rhythm returns. Tap, tap, shift, brush, tap. As the sun lowers, a final call signals the end of work. You rise, stretch, and place your tools in the communal basket. Your hands are raw, your face streaked with dust. But there's no complaint. This is the shape of your life. Predictable, harsh, and strangely peaceful. You return to your sleeping mat. The air cools. Someone nearby hums a tune. The stars begin to prick the sky, one by one. Somewhere far across the plateau, the priests light incense for the pharaoh's spirit. But here, at the edge of the workers' camp, all you smell is sweat, stone, and the soft smoke from a cook fire. You close your eyes. Tomorrow there will be more stone. And the day after that.
Section 2. The sun rises again, and with it, so does the hum of movement in the workers' village. You stir from your mat and stretch your aching arms. The same dry air greets you, the same dust in your throat. But this time, instead of heading to the work site, you find yourself walking the packed dirt paths of the laborious camp your home. For as long as the pyramid rises, this place isn't a ragged cluster of tents. It's a city in its own right. Streets are laid out with care. Mud brick houses rise in neat rows. Each dwelling is simple 1 or 2 rooms, a reed mat, a pot or two, perhaps a crude stool carved from spare timber. But it's yours. Not every worker has a house, but many do. You are lucky again. The scent of yeast and ash fills the air. Communal bakeries are already at work, and you pause at one. A young woman is drawing a paddle of loaves from the dome-shaped oven. Her arms are covered in flour. Her face is streaked with sweat. She barely looks up. She's done this every day of her life. You move on. Past the bakery is the granary, a low, thick-walled building, guarded more seriously than you'd expect. Why? Because this is where the wheat is kept. And wheat is more than food, it's currency. It's power. Without it, no one eats. And without eating, no one builds. The scribe here tracks every sack in and out with obsessive precision. He eyes you suspiciously. But you're not here to steal, just to understand. Further along, you pass a barracks-style building where a group of younger men joke while pulling on sandals and stretching. Some are fresh arrivals, new muscle. Others are old hands. You can tell by the way they walk like their bodies have already measured every inch of this ground. A worker greets you with a nod. His eyes are bloodshot. Too much beer last night. He mutters something about having to join the Western hauling crew today. You don't envy him. That means hours of pushing, sweating, and shouting under the eye of a brutal foreman. You'd rather be carving. Children dart between the buildings, carrying jars or fetching water. Not all of them are workers' children, some are orphans, fed by the kitchens in return for chores. Life here is harsh, but not unkind. There's a system, there's order. You step into the mess tent. It's already half full. Clay bowls, dull knives, spoons. Men and women sit on mats, eating in companionable silence. The food is the same as always. Barley porridge, perhaps a boiled egg if someone's been lucky, and beer. Thick, lumpy, mildly alcoholic, it fills your belly more than your mind. Good enough. Conversation drifts around you. Complaints about a cracked chisel. Gossip about a cart that overturned. A whisper about the pharaoh's latest decree. But nothing loud, nothing urgent. Everyone is saving energy. There's a long day ahead. You rise and walk the perimeter of the village. A low wall separates the worker city from the open desert. Beyond it, a caravan of donkeys approaches, likely bringing fresh supplies. Fish from the Nile, charcoal, wood, maybe dates if the overseers were generous with coin. You watch as they enter, led by a lean man with sharp eyes. Traders, not workers. They don't stay long. They don't have to. Their world is movement. Yours is repetition. You pass a communal well. The line isn't long yet. Later in the day, it will be. Water carriers will fill huge jugs and haul them across the site. For now, it trickles lazily from the stone lip, cool and silent. You drink deeply. It's not sweet, but it's clean. Clean enough. A structure near the center of the camp catches your eye. Shrine. Modest. Barely more than a raised stone with a clay idol and a few offerings. Someone's left a few petals, a carved shell, a tiny loaf. These aren't riches. These are personal tokens. Real prayers. Even workers need hope. A man sits before the shrine with his head bowed. You don't disturb him. As you look back through the residential lanes, you notice signs of last night's meal's charcoal remnants, half-burned reeds, bones picked clean. Life here is circular. Eat, work, sleep, repeat. But within that circle, there's a kind of peace. Someone waves you into a small courtyard. It's shaded, with a makeshift awning of woven reeds. Inside, 3 men are playing a game throwing knucklebones onto a marked board, laughing quietly. One offers you a turn, but you decline. You're observing today, not distracting yourself. Back on the main path, you pass a man mending sandals with strips of cured leather. His fingers are stained, but his movements are precise. Another trims a chisel with a hammerstone. Another sharpens a copper blade. This is a city of skill, not just muscle. You stop at your own dwelling for a moment. It's unremarkable. Mud brick, a narrow door, a woven curtain. Inside, a mat, a storage pot, a battered water jug. But it's quiet, and that matters. You sit for a minute, just breathing. The morning's still young, but the air is already thickening. Another hot day ahead. Outside again, you head toward the edge of the village where supply carts are being loaded. Scribes flit between teams, marking attendance, checking inventories, adjusting quotas. It's a strange contrast, rough labor and exact records. But that's how this all works. It's how this many people can live, eat, and build something so enormous it touches the clouds. A bell clangs once. That's the signal. Work crews begin to assemble. Shouting picks up. Foremen gather tools. A man lifts a heavy mallet and slings it over his shoulder like a familiar friend. The city exhales. It's time. Section 3, the work site, is humming now. You walk toward it with the others. A slow, steady procession, like ants tracing a well-worn path. Your stomach is full enough to last the morning, and the beer's dull edge helps quiet the ache in your legs. As you draw near the base of the pyramid, the scale hits you again. It always does. Even though you've seen it for weeks, even though your hands helped shape part of it, it never feels ordinary. It rises from the desert like a promise, or threat. Solid, stepped, and gleaming faintly in the sunlight where the limestone casing stones have already been set. But for all its grandeur, what powers it isn't divine will or miracles. It's food, and more specifically, rations. You break off from the others, easing toward the small building marked by smoke and the familiar clatter of pots and grinding stones. This is one of the central provisioning kitchens where the lifeblood of the workforce is prepared. Not treasure, not incense, barley. Inside, women and older boys are already at work. Dough is being patted into rough circles and tossed onto flat stones over coals. Another worker is churning a pot of lentils. The smell is pungent but comforting. Garlic, onion, maybe a bit of coriander if supplies were generous. At a corner table, 2 men are gutting dried fish. Not fresh, not here. Not this far from the Nile, but preserved well enough to salt the stew and give it substance. Protein's a luxury. Even a sliver matters. You watch as sacks of emmer wheat are portioned out. A scribe nearby ticks of names and amounts on a long papyrus scroll. He doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. He knows who belongs and who doesn't. You think about your last ration to loaves. A bowl of lentil stew. 1 onion. A small clay cup of beer. It wasn't decadent, but it was enough. You remember the texture of the bread. Coarse and sour. The beer, too thick to gulp, had gone a bit sour in the sun, but it filled the belly. These meals don't just sustain the body, they organize the day. Breaks revolve around food. Deliveries must sync with meal slots. A missed ration means lost labor. You've seen it before mid-sluggish and stumbling by mid-afternoon because a load of barley was late. Food is fuel, nothing more, but also nothing less. Another cart arrives, pulled by a donkey. It holds dates and onions. A guard checks the shipment while a kitchen hand begins sorting immediately some for today's meals. Some sit aside for the scribes and overseers. Even here, hierarchy shapes appetite. You sit by the edge of the cooking area and watch one of the bakers shape dough with the heel of her palm. Her hands are automatic, practiced. She doesn't measure. She just knows. A lump of dough, a scatter of bran, a press and fold, then onto the hot stone. The smell sharpens, and you breathe it in. In the shade, a water boy dozes with a jug in his arms. He's waiting for the next shift to come through, thirsty and grateful. You think about how many people it takes just to keep the food moving. Farmers upstream, boatmen hauling sacks downriver, traders driving donkeys across the desert. And then these bakers, stew stirrers, brewers, all invisible scaffolding holding up the pyramid's spine. The brewery is next. You've been inside once. It's a strange mix of stone vats and warm yeasty air. Clay jars line the walls, each sealed with woven caps. The beer they make here isn't like festival beer, no honey, no fruit, just grain, water, and fermentation. It's a meal, not a drink. Sour, heavy, and vital. A brewer passes by, face streaked with sweat, arms coated in mash. He nods to you. You nod back. It's a shared understanding, two kinds of labor, both essential. Without his peer, your chisel swings half as fast, and without your stonework, there's nothing to build. You hear a clatter and turn to see a ration fight break out. Two younger workers' new arrivals arguing over whose bundle of loaves belongs to whom. A foreman appears like a thunderclap. His stick is light, but his voice is not. He sorts it, yells a warning, and the boys slink off. The system survives another breach. As the sun climbs higher, workers stream in for the midday meal. Some eat quickly in the shade. Others linger in pairs or small groups. No one wastes too much time. It's rest, not leisure. But the food itself brings a moment of comfort. A constant. You sit with a man from the Western Quarry team. He's missing two front teeth and speaks slowly, but you understand him well enough. He's been here 6 months, he says, and he's eaten the same food nearly every day. He laughs, says his dreams taste like beer. You finish your bread and sip the last of your stew. The salt lingers on your lips. You rinse your hands in a shared basin, the water gone grey with flour and oil. As you return to your crew, the work rhythm picks up again. But there's a noticeable change. Energy has returned. The men are joking. Tools are swinging harder. Bellies are full. The afternoon stretch will be brutal. But the worst part, the hollow, empty hours before eating, is behind you. The sun's heat is unforgiving now, but your steps are steadier. You grip your chisel with a little more certainty. You think about the loaves still baking, about the barley that's been measured, about the line of cooks who won't rest until every man has eaten again tonight. This is how a pyramid is built, not by gods, by barley and beer. Section 4. The worksite never truly quiets down, but its tone shifts as the afternoon sun bakes the desert floor. Your crew returns to their stations, sweat already glistening on arms and brows. But before any hammer is raised, a familiar figure walks slowly past your team, papyrus scroll under one arm, reed brush tucked behind one ear, eyes scanning everything without moving his head. He doesn't need to speak. His presence alone tightens the tempo. This is the overseer's scribe, and in many ways, he holds more real power than the man with the staff. You watch him pause beside the tool crates. He notes something, scratches a quick line into his scroll, and moves on. You wonder what he recorded. A missing chisel, an extra head in the group, a lateness. These scribes miss nothing. They are the quiet keepers of Egypt's machinery. Without them, nothing would be measured, rationed, or remembered. Their words are the bones of the system. The overseer may bark orders, but the scribe decides who ate, who worked, who skipped, and who disappears quietly in the night. Your own name exists on one of those scrolls. Probably dozens. Attendance rolls, ration logs, housing assignments, tool usage, health reports. You're not a person here. You're a line of symbols on reed paper, updated daily with sharp precision. You think back to your first week. You'd seen the scribes as soft men, writers, not workers. But now you see the danger in their ink. One misplaced mark and your meals could vanish. A false absence could get you whipped. Too many late notations and your crew status could change from skilled to unskilled. From carver to hauler. Near the base of the ramp, another scribe is stationed under a shaded cloth, balancing a board on his knees as he records the latest block deliveries. A team hauls a stone past him, and he counts aloud 1, 2, 3, 4 and marks the line. His voice is flat, but the hall leader adjusts pace to match it anyway. They all know he's the one who certifies their work. You drift toward the scribe station during your water break, feigning interest in a load queue. Up close, you see his tools, a tightly rolled sheaf of scrolls, a small clay palette smeared with black and red pigment. The reed pen rests in a notch, already wet from use. He glances up, barely registering you. Behind him, another scribe arrives, holding a basket of marked tiles, rations tallies from the southern kitchen. They nod at each other, pass a few words you don't catch, and sort bundles. Communication by scroll, by silent math. This is how 100,000 men don't starve in the desert. A third scribe, younger and more nervous, is being trained nearby. His scroll is half blank. His hand trembles as he writes. The master beside him watches like a hawk. There's no room for error. If he misspells a name or shortens a count, someone could miss their food, or worse, be punished unjustly. You return to your team. Your foreman receives a clay tablet from a passing runner and reads it aloud. 3 men are reassigned. 1 has been elevated to tool maintenance, a break from hauling. 1 has been moved to the sick tent, and 1 simply removed. No explanation, just a flat statement. The men nod, silently absorbing it. No one asks questions. The scrolls speak, and the camp obeys. Later in the day, you pass another set of scribes, this group seated beneath a lean to beside the medical tent. Their task, tracking injuries, doses, and recovery schedules. 1 scribe dictates from a master scroll while another updates the personal file of a sick worker. Names, dates, symptoms, outcomes. Nothing dramatic, just a system of dust and ink. You realize now, if the pharaoh is the heart of this operation, and the workers are its limbs, the scribes are its nerves. Every command flows through them, every reaction recorded. You pause by the tool tent before heading back to work. A scribe is cataloging chisels. Each tool must be returned at day's end, accounted for, measured, checked. If one is damaged, a note goes on the log. If it disappears, the entire crew's rations might be docked until it's found. You saw it happen last week. You glance at your own chisel. The edge is nicked. You'll have to report it. Better that than let a scribe find it first. A nearby scribe's voice cuts through the air, reading a list. Quarry, present. Barkit, present. Tinker, absent. Reason, unknown. Tool returned, yes. Rations claimed, yes. The foreman frowns. Someone's lying. The scribe doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. He writes a mark beside Dinker's name and closes the scroll. It will go up the chain. Quietly, efficiently, you walk back toward the stone line, your head buzzing not with heat, but with the sheer weight of it all. You once thought pyramids were built with muscle, but now you see differently. They are built with ink. Section 5 by now. The sun is sitting high, brutal and uncaring. The pyramid reflects light like a mirror of stone, throwing heat back at the men below. Your team has fallen into rhythm again, chisels tapping, slates creaking, dust drifting like steam of the sand. But today, you've been rotated into a new subgroup, a hauling crew. They call it a gang. That's the actual term, not a punishment, just the system. Your gang's name, painted in faded red on a wooden board, is the Drunkards of Minka. It's not an insult. It's a badge of strange, casual honor. Each gang has a name, some humorous, some aggressive. There's the Friends of Khufu, the Strong Arms of Bastet, the Scorpions who don't sleep. They help the overseers track labor assignments. Sure, but they also give the men identity, pride, and a bit of fun. You gather with your new gang near the edge of the ramp that leads up to the mid-tier of the pyramid. You are not the only one newly assigned, others join, some grumbling, some shrugging. A scribe is present, of course, calling roll and marking names on a scroll. Your name is Reed. You answer. He nods without looking. The crew leader, a man with arms like tree trunks and a voice like grinding millstone, gives the order. The gang assembles around the sled, a wide plank platform on 2 grooved wooden runners. On top of it, a limestone block waits, silent and stubborn. Several tons of hardened desert. You're going to move it. The leader calls out a chant. 4 words repeated. You don't even know what they mean anymore. Maybe no one does. But they have rhythm. They synchronize movement. You grab the rope. It bites into your palms. Pull. It's not immediate. The block resists, heavy with sleep and gravity. But the chant rises. The gang leans. Muscles tighten. Sand shifts under sandals. And slowly, almost reluctantly, the sled begins to move. You feel the strain in your thighs first, then your back, then your shoulders. Every part of you wants to stop, but there's no space for quitting. The chant pulses again. You pull. The sled drags forward, inch by inch, groaning like a wounded ox. The ramp ahead is packed earth, coated in crushed gypsum to reduce friction. Water boys rush forward to sprinkle a thin stream of water along the path, turning the dust into slippery mud. It helps. A little. You grunt. Sweat droops from your chin. The man beside you, missing 2 teeth and breathing like a bellows, growls something encouraging. You don't answer. You can't spare the breath. Halfway up the slope, the sled stalls. The chant breaks. The leader barks orders. Everyone repositions. The ropes tighten again. 1, 2, 3 pull. It moves. By the time you reach the placement area, your arms are trembling. The stone is guided of the sled by another team with padded logs and shims. You collapse beside the ramp wall, chest heaving, mouth dry. Someone hands you water. It tastes of clay and warm. You drink anyway. The leader walks past, nods. That's approval enough. You spend the next hour rotating between rest and assisting with the sled's return. No one hauls twice in a row, not in this hit. But the rhythm never stops. One gang moves, one recovers, one prepares. The names still hang in the air. The fighters of Osiris, the sun-baked donkeys, the sons of stone. Each gang knows the others. Rivalries form. Jokes are made. Wages exchanged over block counts. But at the core, it's shared misery, bonded by sweat. You meet an old man during your rest, too old for heavy hauling now. He sharpens rope TIs and repairs broken sled runners. He tells you stories of his gang from 20 years ago. The men who pulled the Nile. They used to sing real songs, he says. Not just chants. Actual verses, with jokes and rhythm. He chuckles. No one sings anymore. Too tired. Back at the staging yard, a fresh block is being prepared. A new gang steps up, the quiet serpents. They don't speak much. Just grip the rope and go. You admire that. You pass by the name board. It's an old slab of limestone with hundreds of painted names and symbols. Each gang's emblem some crude, some clever. Yours has a broken beer jar with a smirking face. Accurate. You trace a finger across one old, faded title. The Builders of Forever. No one remembers who they were. Maybe they're gone now. Maybe reassigned. Maybe they pulled their last sled and vanished into another village. But the name remains. That's what you start to understand. The gangs come and go. The names fade. But they're part of the pyramid now written in the logs, stamped into the rhythm of movement, scratched into the tools. You lie back on a shaded crate and close your eyes just for a moment. The chant still echoes in your ears. Pull, pull, pull. Section 6. You spend the next morning in the tool yard, a shaded clearing flanked by stone blocks, warm benches, and baskets full of implements. The heat hasn't crept in yet, and a light wind stirs the dust lazily. Your assignment today is simpler but no less important, maintaining tools and preparing equipment for distribution. It's easy to forget just how primitive this operation is. You've seen the size of the stones, the scale of the ramps, the coordination of workers, but now, laid out in front of you, are the humble instruments that make all of it possible. You pick up a copper chisel, its edge dull and blunted from countless hours of battering against limestone. Copper isn't ideal to soft, really, but it's what's available in quantity. The sharpening process is patient work. You take a sandstone file and draw the chisel against it again and again until the edge looks passable. It won't stay sharp for long. Nothing does here. Beside you, a younger worker is testing a dolerite pounder, a crude, rounded hammerstone used for shaping granite. He lifts it above his head and lets it fall onto a test block. The sound is satisfying. A deep thud, almost like a drum. The impact leaves a small divot. That's good. A worn-out pounder will bounce or crack. This one still has life in it. Nearby, someone is readying the bindings on a wooden sled. The runners wear out faster than the stones do, and the ropes fray under strain. He threads fresh cordage through the holes, using a bone awl to tighten the knots. He doesn't speak, just pause, tears, checks, repeats. The foreman passes through, inspecting quietly. He runs his fingers over a chisel edge, then nods. Satisfactory. For now. You walk to the storage crates and help stack newly finished tools by type pounders, chisels, mallets, pry bars, each with a place, each tagged with a crude clay token to track inventory. You see the scribes arrive shortly after, counting, marking, moving tokens from one board to another. Their efficiency would be impressive if it weren't so terrifying. In the corner of the yard, the saw station is already running. A team of men works together to guide copper saw blades through blocks of limestone, using sand as an abrasive. It's slow, agonizing work. The saw isn't sharp. Exactly, it just scrapes and grinds, helped along by the fine grit of crushed quartz. You take your turn at the sanding board, where large flat stones are smoothed by dragging them back and forth against other flat stones. It feels like trying to polish the earth with itself, but over time, it works. The surface becomes slick, clean, perfect for casing. Every few hours, a boy arrives from the kitchens with a jar of water and a scrap of bread for those working in the tool yard. He doesn't speak much, just leaves it and goes. You take a sip, chew slowly, and watch the morning light move across the crates. You think about the tools themselves. They aren't elegant. They aren't ornate. They're born of necessity, basic forms made to endure abuse. A copper chisel has a short life. A mallet can last longer. A dolerite pounder? Sometimes months, if the worker knows how to swing it right. You've seen men name their tools. One old cutter kept a favorite chisel he called The whisper said it sliced like a quiet cod. It broke last week. He didn't speak for hours after. You glance at your own set. Nothing special. Serviceable. But they feel familiar in your hands. That's what matters. Muscle memory. You don't need to think to use them. Your body already knows the angles, the pressure, the tempo. Tap, shift, tap. Later in the day, a sled repair crew arrives with splinters and cracked runners. They dump them in the tool yard with a casual curse and walk off again. You help another man fit replacement runners scraped from acacia wood, tough and fibrous. The holes are bored with a copper drill tipped with flint. It takes time, always time. Someone asks you to check the sled balance. You lift the front slightly and rock it. It creaks, but doesn't wobble. That's good. A wobbly sled leads to injuries, broken stones, lost hours. One small flaw becomes a chain of pain. The afternoon wears on like a long rope unraveling. More tools are returned from the day's cruise, some chipped, some bent, a few missing entirely. A minor argument breaks out between two handlers about a missing mallet. The scribe settles it with a mark on a tile. One man walks away angry, the other just shrugs. The tool will be replaced. The mark, though, that sticks. By late afternoon, you're covered in fine dust and sweat. Your hands raw from ropes and edges. You sit in the shade near the stone basin and clean your fingers with a damp scrap of cloth. A breeze picks up, blowing grit into your eyes. You squint into it, smiling faintly. You didn't move a single stone today. Didn't climb the ramp. Didn't pull rope or chant or stagger under weight. But you enabled all of it. Without tools, nothing moves. Without care, nothing lasts. You walk past the finished stacks one more time, fingers brushing against the dull shine of copper and the smooth curve of wood. These are your silent companions, your unspoken helpers, your legacy, in a way. No one remembers the man who sharpened the mallet, but the mallet remembers, and maybe that's enough.
Section 7. The air is thick with dust and heat by the time the midday bell sounds again. You drop your mallet, stretch your aching shoulders, and wander across the worksite toward the shaded records tent. Today you're observing, not laboring, not, with your body at least. You've been temporarily assigned to assist the scribes. Not a promotion, just a rotation. Chance to see how the other half lives. Inside the tent, it's surprisingly quiet. The noise of stone and shouting fades behind canvas walls. Here, the tools are different treat pens, ink cakes, clay tablets, rolls of papyrus, string-wrapped scrolls stacked in baskets by importance. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, knees brushing up against a low table. The scribe you're paired with is older than you'd expected, gaunt, his scalp mostly bald except for a thin crescent of wiry white hair. His fingers are stained with black ink, and his left eye twitches every few moments. He doesn't greet you, just gestures toward a bundle of tiles. "Copy those," he says, his voice soft and sharp. You glance at the tablet. It's a daily tally. Workers assigned, rations consumed, injuries reported. The handwriting is tight and exact, like it's been burned into the clay with care, not just scribbled. You pick up a pen and test it on a scrap. The ink flows easily, but your letters come out too large. The scribe frowns, but says nothing. You adjust. Smaller strokes, slower. Hours pass like minutes in the quiet. Scrolls are unrolled, tallies checked, dates matched. Everything is written twice, once for the foreman, once for the master record. Nothing is trusted to memory. You realize that even the priest temples didn't operate with this level of documentation. This isn't religion. It's logistics. At one point, a runner bursts in, panting. "Two sleds broke on the east ramp," he says. "One injury? Foreman Hennetu needs 3 new cords and a replacement crew." The old scribe doesn't look up. He waves toward another scribe at the rear of the tent, who immediately begins scratching out a requisition and updating the injury register. The pace never breaks. You wonder how many scrolls exist just to record a single day. As you work, you begin to see the layers in the system. There are scrolls for rations, listing each kitchen, daily output, and shortages. Scrolls for tools, who has what, when it was issued, when it broke. Water routes, quantities, delivery teams, scrolls for death, for disappearances, for promotions, for praise. Nothing escapes the notice of the scribes. In the afternoon, you're assigned to shadow one of the mobile record keepers. He walks the site with authority, ducking under ropes, skirting around sleds, always watching. When a crew finishes a haul, he appears to verify it. When a worker leaves early, he marks it. When food is delayed, He notes the time and sends a runner with the complaint. At one point, he stops beside a row of stone blocks mid-transport, crouches, inspects the tag on the block of clay label pressed with symbols, and compares it to his scroll. He frowns. "This one's early," he says. "It's not scheduled until tomorrow." He makes a note, sharp and swift, and moves on. You follow him in silence. The correction may ripple upward. Someone may be reprimanded, or maybe it will be nothing. But either way, it's written now, set. By the time the sun begins to dip, the light in the record's tent is too dim for more writing. You help gather supplies, ink pots, pens, boards, and stack them in the storage chest. The older scribe dismisses you with a wave. You bow slightly, unsure if that's even necessary, and step out into the cooling air. You walk past the returning crews, their faces slack with exhaustion. Some glance at you, surprised to see ink on your hands instead of dust. You don't explain, they don't ask. That night, you sit with a few of them, under a canopy of reed mats, watching the sky darken to charcoal. One of the men towel, sunburned, missing the tip of one, asks what the scribes even do all day. You answer quietly. "They see everything you say. They remember everything," he snorts. "So what?" You shrug. "So if I fall into a quarry pit tomorrow, someone will know. Someone will record it. Someone will tell the right cook not to set aside my bowl." He chuckles, but doesn't argue. You sit in silence for a while. The stars appear slowly. A few soft voices drift from the other tents. Someone's boiling herbs in a clay pot. The scent of mint and smoke fills the air. You remember one of the scrolls you copied earlier? A man's name scratched out, replaced with a different one. That's all it took to vanish. A line erased, a line redrawn. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it scratches in silence.
Section 8. The pyramid isn't the only thing with layers. You come to understand this fully on a day when you're summoned without warning to assist at the command tent. It stands apart from the others, flanked by a set of guards more ceremonial than threatening, their linen kilts crisp, their posture stiff. Despite the sun, inside it's cool, shaded by thick layers of red matting and anchored by sturdy wooden poles. You expected it to be ornate, maybe even luxurious, but it isn't. It's functional, Spartan, in its own way. A large table dominates the center, scattered with scrolls, wooden tokens, seal stamps, and something you've never seen before. A limestone map of the entire site. Miniature sleds, stone blocks, and markers indicate work zones, staging areas, water routes, and at the very top an ivory figure standing for the pharaoh himself. You're told to wait quietly at the edge. A tall man with a narrow beard and deep-set eyes is speaking softly to another, pointing to the map. You realize slowly that you're witnessing a meeting between the upper foreman and the viziers, and these are the men who don't swing mallets, who don't carry sleds or count onions, but they control it all. The pyramid is muscle. These men are its spine. They speak in clipped, flat voices. No shouting, no panic, just statements. The water carriers from the Western Basin are under quota. The copper shipments from Sinai are delayed. We'll reassign Team C of the drunkards of They're over capacity. 2 crews are requesting release for funeral rites. Grant 1. Each decision is made with a kind of eerie calm. No deliberation, just motion. A boy brings in a tray with drink jars and scribes flutter in the corners like bird staking notes, distributing new scrolls, collecting stamped tiles. You're given a task. Deliver a sealed scroll to the quartermaster's post. You bow, take the papyrus, and step outside. Your sandals crunch over sun-baked earth as you walk, scroll in hand, heart oddly light. For a brief moment, you've stepped above the workers, above the chants and ropes and sleds. You've glimpsed the architecture behind the architecture. The human pyramid. At the quartermaster's station, a fat man with a ring on each finger opens the scroll, scans it, and clicks his tongue. Reallocations, he mutters. Again, he doesn't look at you. just waves you off. You linger near the back of the station. Shelves line the walls, each filled with sealed jars, labeled bundles of rope, baskets of copper chisels, and coiled leather harnesses. Everything's counted. Everything's tagged. It's a world of items waiting to be told where to go. A group of junior foremen arrives with requisitions. One requests more water skins. Another needs stronger ropes. A third is trying to replace 3 broken sleds. The quartermaster barely listens. He hands out approvals like throwing bones to dogs. The men nod and disperse. You carry a second scroll back to the main tent. Along the way, you pass a housing block reserved for skilled workersmen who've served for years and now sleep 2 to a house instead of 6. Their dwellings have awnings. A few even have painted walls. You stop, eyeing the crude mural lotus flowers, ankhs, painted eyes, simple beauty. At the command tent again, you're waved inside. The meeting is done. Only the vizier's representative remains, a quiet man in a white robe. He glances at you once, no expression. Then he points at the ivory figure on the limestone model. The pharaoh has never visited this site, he says. He may never see it. You don't know how to respond. But he sees this. The man continues, gesturing to the map, the reports, the ratios, the output. He looks at you directly. That is what matters. You nod, throat dry. Later, you return to your team. The sweat, the dust, the muttered curses, all familiar, all grounding. But something is different now. You know what's above. You know how decisions cascade downward. You tell no one about the tent, but you carry the knowledge with you. When a teammate complains about longer shifts, you know it's a decision that came from a token being moved on a limestone map. When a cook receives double grain and boasts about his favor, you know it was signed off by a man in linen who's never touched a chisel. The pyramid of stone is only the surface. Beneath it, there's a pyramid of men, layers of control, each narrower than the one below. At the top, a point so small, so sharp, it barely needs to move. It simply exists, and everything below it shifts in response. That night, lying on your mat, you think of that ivory figurine, still, silent, unseen, yet behind it, a world bends. Section 9. There are no weekends, no holidays, no breaks in the grand rhythm of pyramid labor. But every now and then, something gentler weaves through the stone and sweat, a pause, a breath, a shared ritual. Today, you're granted one of those days. Not a full rest day, of course, but a festival is coming, a minor one. Not a royal decree, but an observance among the workers themselves. The priests near the river say it honors Hathor, goddess of joy, music, and women. That may be true, but here it simply means music, shade, and a slower pace. You wake not to the usual bark of a foreman, but the low thrum of a drum being tested outside. A group of men from the southern crews have hauled out worn instruments, red flutes, cracked frame drums, and a chipped sistrum that still shakes when rattled. They're tuning them, sort of more by feel than pitch. You pull on your tunic, stretch, and step into the early sun. The camp already feels different. Lighter somehow. Smiles come quicker. Elbows are nudged with good humor. And the air, though still dry and heavy, doesn't seem quite as sharp. You make your way to the central square of the workers' town, a clearing that usually holds market stalls and announcement boards. Today, it's being swept clean by children. They laugh as they work, kicking dust into little clouds. A few carry garlands of woven reeds and palm fronds. Decoration, celebration, or something close enough. By mid-morning, the overseers allow a shortened work rotation. Half the crews remain active, but their hours are reduced. Others are allowed to linger near camp, so long as they remain productive. A vague term. No one pushes its definition too hard today. You're called to assist in setting up offerings. A simple clay altar is raised at the eastern edge of camp. Not a temple, just a platform. Women place baskets of onions, bread, dates, and beer around it. A carved figure of Hathor is set in the center, her cow horns flanking a sun disk, painted in faded gold. An older man lights incense. The smoke curls upward in slow spirals. It smells of myrrh and something unfamiliar sweet, biting, clean. A prayer is spoken, more whispered than declared, something about gratitude, protection, health, but mostly the words are for endurance, not divine strength, just the strength to wake again tomorrow. The food is shared afterwards, not traded. A special stew is ladled into bowls. Lentils thick with extra oil, dotted with dried fish. You sit with others on mats, cross-legged, eating slowly. No one talks over the food. They savor it. This is more than nourishment today. It's acknowledgement. After the meal, the music begins. It's nothing refined, no harps, no trained singers, but it's alive. The rhythm is steady. The flutes warble like birds with cracked wings, and the sistrum shakes like dry seeds in a jar. Some men clap, some dance in awkward bursts. Others just watch, eyes half closed, letting the beat wash over them. You tap your foot, not because you want to, but because it happens. The drum speaks to something buried deep, something older than stone. A group of women join with their own song. One of those half-remembered village melodies passed down through endless mothers. It's about harvest, or marriage, or river floods. No one knows exactly, but the tune pulls smiles from worn faces. Later, the pace slows again. The altar remains. A few men leave small tokens beside Hathor's statue, a carved bead, a knotted scrap of dyed linen, a copper ring bent in half. Not gifts. Symbols. A transaction of hope. You join a small group near the edge of camp, where someone has laid out a board game. You sit on your heels, watching pieces slide along the painted squares. The rules are murky, the goal even more so. But the players laugh, tease, argue. The game doesn't matter. The play does. As the sun begins to lower, the music fades. The altar is quietly dismantled. The food is gone. Only the incense lingers, clinging to the air like memory. Work resumes for a few hours before dusk, but it feels gentler. Even the foremen seem less sharp. One of them jokes with a water hauler. You've never seen that before. That night, the stars feel closer. Maybe it's the incense. Maybe it's the music still echoing in your chest. Or maybe it's just the contrast after so many endless days of strain. Even the smallest ritual feels holy. You lie back on your mat and think of Hathor, not the goddess in gold, but the one found in laughter, shared stew, and drumbeats in the dust. Rest comes easily. Tomorrow the stone will wait. Section 10, the next morning, returns you to the grind, but not the one you're used to. You're reassigned not to chisels, not to sled gangs, but to the water haulers. A different world entirely. One that operates in the background, mostly ignored by the stonecutters and drivers. But without them, nothing happens. You report to a lean man with a crooked nose and thick wrists, who's been managing the water teams for years. He doesn't speak much, just hands you a leather sling and points toward the jugs. The jars are large, made of clay, rough on the outside and cool to the touch. Each one holds enough to supply a small crew for an hour or two if they're disciplined. You sling one over your back, feel the weight settle into your spine. Another worker hands you a cloth pad to protect your shoulder. You're grateful for it almost immediately. Your first task is to fetch water from the central It's not just a hole in the ground, it's a sunken stone structure lined with clay, fed daily by carts hauling barrels from the Nile. These carts arrive at dawn, pulled by donkeys with tired eyes, their handlers barely awake. You descend the steps, careful not to slip. The cistern water is warm, slightly silty, but precious. You fill your jug, haul it back up, and begin the long walk to the mid-ramp station. It's not glamorous. It's not even visible to most of the other workers. But this job matters. Every hauling team, every carver, every sled pusher needs water. Without it, hands blister, mouths crack, and tempers turn dangerous. You've seen fights break out when water runs dry, tools dropped, quotas missed. One broken jar can send a ripple through an entire shift. You follow a well-worn path, marked by muddy footprints and sun-dried tracks. Other haulers pass, you go in the opposite way, their shoulders hunched, shirts soaked. No one speaks. There's no banter. This is survival duty. You reach your first crew near the base of the pyramid. They don't look up at first, just hold out their hands. You remove the jug from your back, uncork it, and begin pouring carefully into small cups passed from palm to palm. The men drink quickly, but not greedily. They've learned restraint. A few splash water on their faces, grateful even for the waste. A foreman gives you a nod. You sling the jug over your back again, lighter now, but still dragging, and move on. You refill at a smaller supply point near the quarry and continue your route. By midday, you've walked miles in broken loops, your feet blistering, your hands sticky from clay. The sling cuts into your shoulder despite the padding. Your legs begin to tremble from the repetition. But you don't stop. At one point, you pass a collapsed worker, a hauler like you. Older, unconscious, under the sun. Two men are dragging him to shade. A scribe arrives moments later and begins questioning the crew. Was he rationed water? Did he meet his quota? Was he scheduled for this route? You don't wait for the answer. You walk on, jug sloshing, sweat pouring down your back. You stop at a shaded rest post later in the afternoon. A quiet girl sits nearby, wrapping bundles of wet linen, two cool jars for later use. She offers you a slice of melon. It's warm but sweet. You nod your thanks and sit beside her. No words, just breath. She tells you softly, eventually, that her brother hauls water too. Has for 3 years. Broke his foot once. Wasn't allowed to rest. Got reassigned to waste hauling. He didn't return. You stand up again, heavier in spirit than in body. Your final delivery is to a carving team at the upper tier. You climb slowly, step by step, jug bouncing against your hip. When you reach them, the men look like statues, silent, dust-covered, drained. One of them smiles when he sees you. Not for you, for the jug, for what it means. You uncork it, pour, pass it around. They drink, they nod. No words. You walk back down with the empty jar. A breeze hits your face. For a moment, it feels like reward. But it's just weather, nothing personal. By dusk, you've returned to the hauler's corner of the camp. Jugs are stacked, slings hung to dry. A few men soak their feet in shallow basins, eyes closed. No one boasts. There's no pride in this job, only necessity. That night, as you lie down, your arms twitch from exhaustion, your back burns. But in your chest, there's a strange calm. You didn't shape a single stone today, didn't lift a tool, but you fed the pyramid, one sip at a time. The next time you drink, you'll remember that. The weight of water. Section 11. You rise before dawn the next day. assigned to a special rotation that few are eager for. The quarry shift. The pyramid itself might be the monument, but it's born in another place out, where the stone is torn from the earth, with nothing but sweat and noise. The quarry lies east of the workers' town, far enough to need a walk, close enough to drag stone. As you approach, the air feels different, less ordered, less ritual. The rhythm here is harsher, the tools heavier, the men quieter. The first sound is the hammering. It begins long before you see the sight. A relentless percussion, stone on stone, metal on rock, bone vibrating with every strike. You round a hill and see it. A vast wound in the earth, its walls stepped and pale, its floor covered in fragments and dust. Hundreds of men spread out like ants in a pit. You descend the gravel slope carefully. There's no railing, just instinct. The stone underfoot is warm, even this early. You're placed on a dolerite team. Your tool is simpler rounded pound stone, worn smooth at one end. Your task. Strike the granite again and again until a line of fracture appears. Then lift, then repeat. There's no chant here, no pacing songs, just effort. The rhythm comes from your own breath. In, swing, out, swing. Each blow sends a jolt through your arms, up your neck, behind your eyes. You taste dust, you taste copper, you taste the nothing that comes from hours of repetition. Nearby, another crew works on a trench, carving channels under a massive stone to break it free. They use copper chisels and wooden wedges, hammered into place, then soaked to expand and split the rock. It's clever, primitive, reliable. A foreman watches without speaking. He knows better than to shout here. The men know what's expected. You take a break around mid-morning, sitting on a pile of rubble under the edge of the quarry wall. The sun is climbing fast. Already, the white stone glows like teeth. You drink from a shared jar, warm water tasting of grit and effort. Someone hands you a fig, half-dried, sticky with heat. You chew slowly, eyes half closed, arms buzzing from the pounding. You notice a man nearby working alone, carving symbols into a block with a small chisel. Not hieroglyphs, just a mark, a line, a swirl, a crude version of a name, maybe, or a prayer. He finishes, brushes the dust away, and stands without looking back. The block will be hauled away tomorrow. No one will ever see that mark again. But it's there, under layers of stone. Under the pharaoh's tomb, a message from the quarry. You're called back in. The afternoon blurs into a monotony of impact. The stone resists, always, but you learn its language. A certain angle gives a different sound. A deeper echo means weakness. A flint line means trouble. You adapt. At one point, a wedge splits early and a chunk of stone rolls. A man's foot is crushed. He screams once. The scribe nearby doesn't flinch, just records. A stretcher team arrives. No one stops. The quarry doesn't wait. You're moved to a hauling crew to help roll a newly freed block up the ramp toward staging. Thick ropes, logs, groaning weight. You barely remember the climb. Just heat and muscle and the bark of instructions. By the end of the day, you're dust-covered, raw. Your hands shake as you place the pound stone in the crate. Someone pats your back. You nod, too tired to speak. The walk back is silent. The path feels longer. The sun has turned everything gold, then copper, then grey. You pass the same hill from morning. It looks different now. Smaller. You know what it hides, what it costs. At camp, the kitchens are quiet. Stew simmers, bread bakes. You eat on the ground, legs straight, arms limp. No one talks much tonight. Quarry days do that. You lie down early, limbs buzzing, spine throbbing in your ears. The sound of impact hasn't left. It won't for a while, but before sleep takes you, you think about that symbol carved into the block. Invisible, silent, permanent. Section 12. You wake sore in ways you didn't know were possible. The quarry bruisers run deeper than skin. But there's no pause not when today you're assigned to one of the transport crews. The stone you helped free yesterday now needs to move, not just out of the quarry, but across the dust-choked plain, up a ramp, and into the belly of the pyramid, and it won't move itself. The first thing you see are the sled's wide wooden platforms resting on two thick runners, curved upward at the front like sandals. Ropes as thick as your wrist are coiled beside them, frayed from use, smelling of sweat and sun. The block to be moved rests on one sled already. It's massive, pale, and lifeless, but soon it will travel like a ship through dry waves. You're part of the team assigned to wet the path. That's your job. Not to pour. Because dry sand grips like claws, wet sand lets the sled slide. You join a line of workers carrying large jugs of water, each filled at the cistern and refilled again and again by runners. Your task is to walk ahead of the sled, pour the water evenly, and keep the surface just damp enough to reduce resistance. Not muddy mud sticks, just slick. It seems simple. It isn't. The timing must be perfect. Too fast, and it dries before the sled reaches it. Too slow, and the crew has to stop mid. The foreman walks alongside with a stick, shouting commands in short bursts. More there. Hold water. Now pour. You react quickly, tilting your jar in a slow arc, feeling the splash at your feet. The haulers chant in low rhythm as they pull 30 men or more, leaning into the ropes, walking backwards uphill, sandals dragging trenches. The block jerks forward in bursts, then glides a few handspans before friction catches again. You fall into rhythm. Pour, step, refill, return. Again, behind you. The wooden sled groans like an animal, the block groaning in reply. One slip, one stumble, and you could find yourself under it. You've heard stories. You believe them. Mid-morning, a sled from another team tips on a turn. Too sharp. Poor balance. The block slides sideways, crashing into the sand. A great shout. Rises one man injured, two more buried briefly. Runners are sent. Scribes arrive. Your crew doesn't stop. That's someone else's stone. As the sun rises, the pace slows. The haulers breathe harder, their chants breaking into grunts. You hand off your jug, receive a fresh one. The water runs faster now, the sand darkening in streaks. At the base of the ramp, the real challenge begins. This is no gentle slope, it's a steep packed path rising along the pyramid's flank, reinforced with stone edging. Ropes are retied, haulers replaced with fresher men. More of you are brought in to keep the sand soaked. The water flows ahead of the sled like a river being drawn backward. You scramble to stay ahead of it, your bare feet slipping on slick sand, your arms burning from the constant lift and tip of the jug. The sled moves again, now with groans of pain from both men and timber. It creaks up inch by inch, the ropes straining like bowstrings. You hear a snap someone's hand, bleeding but the crew doesn't stop. When the block finally crests the ramp, it's nearly noon. Everyone drops where they stand. You do too. Your jug rolls from your hand. Empty. A scribe marks the completed delivery. A foreman nods. One crew moves off. Another arrives. There are still dozens of blocks to go. You spend the rest of the day transporting empty sleds back to the staging area, then helping stack the ropes. Each one is coiled carefully, measured, catalogued. These ropes are more valuable than you. A snapped line costs hours, a snapped man costs less. By sunset, your legs shake from effort. You sit near the water trough, legs submerged, eyes closed. Someone passes you a flat cake of barley and lentil paste. You eat it slowly, mechanically. Your mind wanders. You'd think about the path you walked all day, mood, sand, wood, heat. You think about the sleds, trail like a scar carved across the desert. You think about how, from the top of the pyramid, none of it is visible. Just stone, perfectly placed, but beneath it, slick tracks, frayed ropes, spilled water, and 100 men who carried a single block to its final bed. Section 13. The air smells different. Today smoky, sharp, overlaid with something bitter. You wake to the distant sound of coughing, and by the time you reach the center of camp, you see why. The infirmary tent is overflowing. It's not plague. Not yet. But the rotation schedule has collapsed under a slow wave of heat exhaustion, infection, bruises, broken toes, twisted ankles, and all the strange ailments that fester under Egypt's sun. You're sent to assist the healers, not because you're hurt, but because they need hands. So today, you enter another layer of the pyramids. Anatomy, the soft tissue, the part no one speaks of, unless they have to. The infirmary isn't a temple. It's a canvas structure, reinforced with timber, lined with mats and storage baskets. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of old sweat, blood, and burned herbs. Men lie on pallets, some moaning, others silent, eyes fixed on the ceiling like it's made of answers. The lead healer is a woman named Temu. Her hair is tied in a tight braid, her forearms scarred from burns and scratches. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't ask. She points. "You," she says, "wash that." You kneel beside a basin and begin cleaning a copper probe. Another assistant is grinding dried myrrh into powder. Another peels garlic bulbs, pressing them into paste. These are your medicine spices, salves, wine, and prayers. A man is brought in with a badly split foot, crushed by a sled. He's conscious, just barely. Temu peels the sandal from his foot, pours a dark liquid over the wound, then presses a hot stone wrapped in linen to the skin. He screams once, then faints. She doesn't blink. She motions for bandages. You hand them to her. You look down at your hands, already smudged with blood. They don't tremble. Nearby, another man whispers nonsense, feverish. His arms and legs twitch. The healer smears his forehead with a mix of beer and date syrup. She tucks a carved amulet under his tunic. You ask what it is. "Sekhmet," she says. "To fight the bad air." You nod, unsure if it's belief or protocol. Maybe both. You learn quickly how to fold linens into strips, how to reheat poultices without burning them, how to check a wound for pus by smell, not sight. A priest arrives mid-morning, burns incense, and mutters a blessing. The smoke coils around the tent like a lazy snake. The priest leaves without speaking to anyone. You're sent to deliver an amulet to a foreman's hutterman, recovering from a broken leg. His house is small, private, cleaner than yours. He accepts the charm without comment, eyes glazed. You return, passing the tool yard, where broken chisels are being melted down for recasting. You think of bones, things breaking, things being reformed. By noon, you're back in the tent, fanning a man who can no longer speak. His skin is pale, his hands twitch. You don't know if he'll last the day. Temu sees your expression. "Not all get buried," she says, gently. "Some go back to the stone." You don't ask what that means. Later, You help sort the medicine shelf. Clay jars marked with symbols, ashes, dried mint, resin, oils, salts, even crushed beetles. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is irrelevant. A boy walks in with burns across both arms. Touched a hot sled runner during loading. Temu scolds him, then treats him. His tears stop halfway through the bandaging. He looks at you like you're part of the magic. You are, for today. The injured talk in sleep. Names, chants, ration counts. You listen as you mop the tent floor. You begin to hear patterned crew names, overseers, lost tools, misquotas. The brain doesn't forget the pyramid, even when it tries. You pause beside a shelf with amulets, tiny copper eyes, carved wooden birds, scraps of old rope tied in loops. Workers bring them, leave them, ask for them. They don't question if they work. They just need to believe something does. You asked Timu if she wears one. She opens her tunic slightly, revealing a crude glyph on a cord. For memory, she says. Mine or theirs. Evening comes slowly, dragging long shadows across the camp. The tent quiets as patients sleep or slip into deeper silence. You clean your hands in a basin that's already gone red and grey. You're dismissed with a nod. You walk home in silence. Your back hurts less than usual. But your mind does not. You've seen the insides of the machine now. Not the gears, the breakpoints, the injuries, the infections, the quiet endings. You lie on your mat, eyes wide open. You think about the amulet Timu wore. You think about the men she treated. You wonder who remembers them when the scrolls are full and the blocks are set. Section 14. You are pulled from your mat before first light by the low hiss of a messenger. No words, just a gesture. Come now. You follow, still barefoot, toward the outer path, where the guards never linger and the stars haven't yet faded. The air is cool, rare, brief, and sharp as flint. You know where you're going. Not the ramp, not the kitchens. To the eastern staging wall, the place where the stone rises, and beyond that what can't be touched. The Pharaoh's tomb chamber. Today, you won't be hauling, you won't be measuring grain. You'll be entering the space that all this labor, all this breath, all this bleeding has built. You and 9 others are selected for a delicate task, guiding a finished block into place near the internal chamber's edge. Not just any block, one that will be sealed behind others, one that no one will see again. Ever. The path is cleared for you, unusually so. Even the foremen are hushed. Scribes don't record today's actions aloud. It's not forbidden, but it's sacred in a quiet, uncomfortable way. The inner chamber is surprisingly small. You expected vastness, but the space is tight, narrow, and dimly lit by a shaft of sunlight reflected from a polished mirror angled through a narrow tunnel. Engineers stand nearby, muttering about clearance. 2 of them carry wooden squares and plumb lines. The air smells like chalk, age, and something fainter, something flora. Incense, probably. A priest must have passed through before you arrived. Your task is simple. Lower the final support block. Position it precisely, and back out before the rest of the floor is closed above it. The work must be exact. No grunting. No mistakes. The floor is clean, swept. You realize this is the only part of the pyramid, not coated in dust, the only part kept as it will be for eternity. You and your team take positions. A chant begins not for rhythm this time, but for focus. The chant is not loud. It's barely more than a breath. But it matches your heart. Lift, shift, slide. The stone moves. Inches, then more. You use levers to align it. You use padded logs to guide its descent. A scribe, present after all, watches closely. He will mark this as complete, as final. The block kisses its place with a sound that isn't quite a thud, more like a sigh, like something ancient closing its eyes. You sit back on your heels. One worker touches the edge of the stone and whispers something, a name, a prayer. You don't ask. The chamber falls still. No voice breaks the moment. No order is given, but you all know it's time to go. As you exit, the engineers begin preparing the next seal. You won't return. That space will soon be covered with layers of stone, then lost to all but time. You step outside into full morning light, and you feel it. The presence, it isn't a person. It's the pharaoh. Not physically, he's in the palace, or another palace, or dead already. No one tells you. But he is here, in the stone, in the silence, in the endless pool of purpose. Everyone works in his name, not by conversation, but by gravity. He is the why. You remember the figurine on the limestone map in the command tent? The one that never moves. Today, you saw where that point leads. You walk slowly back to camp. People pass you, cooks, scribes, a boy chasing a goat. No one knows where you've been. No one asks. You eat your rations without noticing the taste. You lie down early, muscles twitching from effort, but mind buzzing from stillness. That night, you dream not of chisels or ropes, but of a dark, silent room sealed with stone. A room that will never hear footsteps again. A room shaped by your hands. A room that belongs to the god. Section 15, there's no announcement. No celebration, no final drumbeat to mark the moment when the last block is set. But it's finished. The pyramid is finished. The days feel different, and yet they don't. You still wake with the sun. You still stretch your aching limbs and dust off the mat. You still eat the same barley bread, chew the same onions, sip the same warm beer. But the chant is gone. The sled tracks have faded. The ramps are being disassembled. The air is quieter. The pyramid stands, complete, pale and smooth. Its casing stones gleam like bone under the sun. The scaffolding has been stripped away. No more hammering. No more sleds creaking up the incline. No more curses or broken ropes or shouted roll calls. The workers' village empties quickly. Caravans begin to depart, crews disbanded, tools packed up, temporary shelters left to bake in the heat. You help tear down the awning outside the ration tent, fold the woven matting, and carry it to the supply yard. The scribes are still there, of course, heads bent over, closing accounts. They mutter about rations, housing reports, who owes what. The records must be closed before the final payroll is sent. You're not sure what you'll do next. Some workers have already returned to farms up the Nile. Others head toward new sites, royal roads, even tombs for lesser nobles. A few stay behind to join the priestly staff that will maintain the pyramid's rituals. You were never a priest. You won't be one now. But before you go, you walk the perimeter of the pyramid one last time. The base is still littered with traces of labor, discarded rope fibers, broken pottery, flakes of stone, and the footprints of thousands baked into the earth. Ghosts of motion, the bones of a machine that no longer hums. You stop at the entrance, ramp still accessible for now, though soon it'll be sealed or repurposed. You place your hand against the stone, cool despite the sun. Your palm finds a faint groove where your crew once dragged block after block. You remember the gangs, the drunkards of Menkaure, the sons of stone, the scorpions who don't sleep. You whisper those names, not aloud but in your mind, as if you're calling roll one last time. Down the slope, you pass the water haulers, track narrow now, barely visible. But you see it. You'll remember the weight. The heat, the balancing act of spilled jugs and desperate thirst. The quarry path is still marked by worn stones and discarded dollarite pounders. Some are cracked in half, forgotten. You pick one up. It's smooth and familiar in your palm. You hold it for a long time, then set it back down where it belongs. You pass the infirmary tent, now collapsed into bundles. The scent of herbs is gone, replaced by dry earth. You think of Tamu, her braid, her silence, her steady hands. Finally, you reach the workers' village. The homes are quiet. Most are already empty. Some doors are left open. You look inside, one just a mat, a broken bowl, and a faint painting of a lotus on the wall. Someone lived here for years, and now they've vanished. You don't feel sad. Not exactly. Just ... still. You sit at the edge of the village wall, watching the sun lower toward the hills. The pyramid glows gold in the light, as if the stone itself has remembered the touch of fire, and you wonder, who will see it? Not tomorrow, not next season, but centuries from now, millennia. Will anyone walk these paths? Will they know about the rope burns on your shoulders, the blood that soaked into the quarry dust, the chant your gong sang to summon strength? Will they guess how many hands placed each block? How many nights you lay awake, wondering if you mattered? Probably not. They'll see stone, but you know what's inside, and maybe that's enough. You lie back now, on your mat of woven reeds, the day behind you like a closed scroll. The pyramid is done, the noise is gone, and your breath, at last, is your own. The stars emerge, slow and steady, like old friends returning to their watch. Above you, the sky stretches vast and soft, filled with silver dust and gentle silence. No sleds creak, no stone is hauled, no orders echo, just wind over sand and the slow cooling of earth. You let your arms rest at your sides, palms open, feel the grainy texture of dust beneath your fingers. Let your feet relax, your jaw loosen. Let your thoughts, too, become quiet, like tools set gently aside. In your mind, the pyramid remains massive, silent, perfect, but it no longer calls to you. It stands without you now, and that's all right. You've done your part. You shaped a stone. You poured water. You carried names in silence. You saw it all. Breathe in. Let the scent of ash and bread fade. Breathe out. Let the weight lift. No chants now. No roll calls. No sun beating down on your neck. Just the steady rhythm of your chest. Slow and safe. Just the memory of work. Now distant. A story, not a burden. Tomorrow you may travel. You may stay. The world will turn, but tonight there is nothing left to prove, nothing more to carry. The stone is set. Your eyelids grow heavy, your hands feel light, and the pyramid, it glows behind your thoughts like a dream half remembered, solid, still, done sleep. Now you are finished.